If a small town in Wisconsin experiencing big city crime sounds intriguing to you, then order Jeff Nania's book, Bough Cutter, today. Welcome to Blackbird Writers Presents Author Interviews. Jeff draws upon his years serving as a decorated sheriff's deputy and in-depth knowledge of Wisconsin's natural resource issues to weave together stories that keep readers wondering who is on the right side of the law in the small town of Muskie Falls. Welcome, Jeff.
Hi, I'm glad to be here. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. And thank you for taking the time to be here with us today.
Oh, my pleasure.
All right, so I just want to jump right into the fact that this is the third, Bough Cutter will be the third in the series, your first two, Figure Eight and Spider Lake, there in your background. How many books do you kind of have in mind? Or did you start knowing that you were going to go to at least three, or how did that process work for you, building a series?
Actually, I was completely surprised when Figure Eight was published, and I was even more surprised when someone even bought a copy.
It's a great book. You shouldn't be surprised.
I never had any expectations of that happening. I wrote the book as a story for my family to read on vacation. And we would buy a box of mystery books from a local Wisconsin writer, and we'd read them together. We've had this family reunion tradition in northern Wisconsin for a long time, since before I was born. This author did not write a book that year, and so I wrote Figure Eight.
Oh, that is a great story. That's awesome. I love that kind of tradition. Just getting together and reading.
Yeah, well, and it was fun, and then Figure Eight was published, and
here we are now on Bough Cutter.
Here we are. Here we are.
Which is also awesome. So you always include Wisconsin natural resource issues as part of the threads that go through your books. So my question is, do you look at an issue that you kind of want to highlight, or do you start with a crime and then add the natural resource issue to that?
No, neither.
Okay.
I look at it from the sense of the community. Is in Figure Eight, one of the issues was an iron ore mine. In Wisconsin, I worked in the Capitol for a long time. I was a nonpartisan advisor on environmental issues. Mm-hmm. And one of the last issues I worked on involved the siting of an iron ore mine in Wisconsin. And you know, these environmental issues, the more rural the place, the more meaning they have. People really identify with the landscape in northern Wisconsin. Mm-hmm. And actually, people in rural communities I've met and I've worked with, they identify with that landscape. That's part of who they are and part of what their family is. And when there are issues, and there are, let me tell you, we're just getting started with issues, land has become a critical piece of the puzzle. And how that land is used, wise use, is we are dependent on that.
Yeah. And
so you can't escape that as part of the story.
Okay. Great answer. Okay. Yeah, and I just kind of want to throw out there, in Arizona, we had uranium mines on Native American land, and that was quite tearing apart of a community. So I very much understand how community is the driving force behind that.
But what you're saying is this: these environmental issues, when you deal with them, you said tearing apart the community. That is what happens. Mm-hmm. These communities are woven so tightly together, and all of a sudden they just rip this, and it takes a long time to put that back.
Yeah.
So
absolutely. Okay, so you pour a lot of your experience as a sheriff's deputy into John's character. And I was wondering, how many parallels are there to issues that you've had in your own career?
John Cabrelli has become a friend of mine.
Because he's a nice guy. He's somebody you'd want to know. He's
Yeah,
fun to
he's a
hang
good
out
guy.
with.
And he has had his trials and tribulations. I would think that John Cabrelli is, I have been blessed with an eclectic group of people in my life. It's a lot of them are like stray dogs. I fed them once and they keep coming to the door. And John Cabrelli is made up of a bunch of different law enforcement officers.
Okay.
But his story in Figure 8 is a real story. I mean, it is a tough way, and we deal with this issue of PTSD, and you know, never goes away.
Yeah. Yeah.
So Cabrelli is you know, I laugh at him. I mean, I think he's funny, and I'm writing the stuff. I don't even know it. I think he's funny, and yeah, he's a friend of mine.
All right. All right. Can you tell us a little bit about the wildlife in Bough Cutter specifically? There's a lot of discussion about wolves, and one of the things we're having in the Southwest is wolves being reintroduced. So I was curious as to whether the wolves had ever gone away in Wisconsin or if their population is growing. And then one of the other threads is the muskie fish. So if you could just talk a little bit about the wildlife in Bough Cutter.
Sure. Wolves right now in Wisconsin and nationally are a hot button issue. In Wisconsin, wolves were threatened and been part of the Threatened and Endangered Species Act, and they were actually endangered, meaning that, as the people up north say, you couldn't shoot one unless your arm was in its mouth. And the population of wolves, there have been gray wolves in Wisconsin 10,000 years.
Mm-hmm.
They weren't reintroduced. They were here all the time, but they began to be more successful, larger numbers of deer, food, so on and so forth, and big country. Wolves like big country. They like to be able to move, in northern Wisconsin and northern Minnesota has big country.
Mm-hmm.
And but there are feelings about wolves that go deep. And I'll tell you, I went to a hearing and was testifying on a wetland issue. And the people before me was another issue. And they was a sheep farmer. They grew raised sheep that had a kind of wool that didn't have the non-allergenic. People who were allergic to wool could wear sweaters with us.
Cool.
And they showed a video of their sheep yard after a pack of wolves got in. These are good folks, nice people, several generations raising sheep, and they don't have a complaint with the wolves, but they have a complaint with the wolves when they threaten their livelihood. So Wisconsin is trying to balance that. They had a wolf hunt this year. Wolves were removed from the endangered species list, and but it was poorly planned, and there is going to be hunting of wolves for several different reasons, but they're part of our natural landscape. And frankly, on our farm here, we have had issues with wolves, and not pleasant issues.
Oh.
So, we've got this big, people, particularly people go to rural areas, live in rural areas, hike in rural areas, and also these urban areas where coyotes are everywhere. How are we going to live with wildlife?
Mm-hmm.
And we really have to make a decision about that.
Yeah.
And that is what's going on with wolves. In the southwestern United States, it is a different deal altogether. And it'll be interesting because this is a reintroduction of wolves, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
They're going to be monitoring them closely. They are not expecting a huge population density. So it'll be interesting to see how that works.
Yeah, and of course it's the cattle ranchers who don't want them. You know, same with the sheep farmers. There's just easy prey, you know, and
Well,
it's their livelihood.
and wolves are apex predators, and I mean they have this whole thing about they want to chase something that's slow. You know, cattle in a fenced-in area, that's slow.
Yeah.
A deer causes them to burn up a lot of energy to catch the deer. So
yeah. And what about the musky fish? There was a little bit of discussion about the northern pikes kind of taking over.
Oh, don't even talk about it with me. I can't. So
we can move on if you want.
Muskie is the Wisconsin state fish, and I love to fish muskies, and my family loves to fish muskies. And I mean, there is no more exciting fishing than fishing muskies. And what has happened is in some of the lakes in Wisconsin that previously did not have populations of northern pike now have populations of northern pike. There are tons of theories. Everybody on a bar stool has a theory in northern Wisconsin about how northern pike got into their muskie lake. This is serious talking. This is just not a conversation. This is serious. And you know, in one of the books, John Cabrelli is talking to these ice fishermen, and this ice fisherman says, "Yeah," he says, "I'll tell you, want to find the guy who brought northern pike into this muskie lake. I've been fishing there for 50 years and never caught a northern, and we'll hang him, Sheriff." And that is kind of the sentiment that people have. It'll be interesting to see how this all goes down. Now, our kids, we're involved with environmental charter schools and have been for since 2002. And interestingly enough, one of our schools in the book is going to be part of an experiment where they put transponders in muskie fingerlings, and they're able to monitor their travel. And so I love muskies. I think it's a perfect example of the North. And you know, muskies are great fun, and they're exciting.
And they're big, right?
Yeah.
I looked them up, and the pictures.
World record is 69 pounds.
Yeah.
69 pounds. That is a big fish.
That is a big
fish. You know, and when you get a muskie on, they fight like crazy. They come out of the water and dance on their tail. They run at the boat. They do all of those things. And it's great fun.
All right. That was actually an awesome reaction there. So there is a discussion early on in the book about a coroner being an elected position in Wisconsin. And I know it varies state by state, but pretty much you don't have to be a doctor to be a coroner. Can you tell us a little bit more about that and like some of the problems that can cause?
You know, yes. A friend of mine is a medical examiner. He's a retired FBI agent and a medical examiner for the state of Wisconsin. Another friend of mine is the chief medical examiner for the state of Wisconsin. And as our ability increases to extract evidence, no one speaks for dead people except the coroner. In Wisconsin, the coroner in any county is the most powerful law enforcement officer in that county. But technical skills are critical to solving crimes, particularly when we're talking about DNA matches and you know, those things. So the first coroner I ever met, he sold car insurance, and he had a little restaurant and bar, and he was the coroner. And you know what? He got elected coroner every time he ran because he had a restaurant and bar. He'd serve free food and drinks, and they'd all vote for him. He was a great guy, but compared to what people now have and their ability, it's just remarkable. And so in Wisconsin, they're moving to medical examiners, but it really is, it started as kind of a social issue, but it's not anymore. And the reason it's not a social issue is because they're solving crimes.
Mm-hmm.
Medical examiners, highly trained professionals, are solving crimes. They are extracting evidence from deceased persons that we would never dreamed of 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And it's pretty remarkable. So anytime you get anything that, look, no one wants the bad guys on the street.
Right.
So whatever we find that works for getting rid of the bad guys, other than, doing it in a lawful way.
In a lawful way, yeah.
Right. We need to employ that. And so it's been, there's a definite move in the state of Wisconsin and across the country for medical examiners.
Yeah, it just flabbergasting that it's like all you need to be a coroner is to be 18. It's just not, for somebody with that much power, you would think there'd be a few more qualifications.
Well, it's not a popular job. I mean, people don't jump right into that. And in one of the books, no one applied for the job, so a guy showed up.
All right. I'd like to actually ask you about your inspiration for the character of Julie, who is John's, the love of his life, because she is a bit of a firecracker, and but she definitely has a heart of gold. So you have the word inspiration floating over your head right now. So what was your inspiration for what or who for Julie?
Well, to be honest with you, a lot of the inspiration for Julie came from my wife. She is ran an environmental charter school, national award winning, and she taught kids who no one else wanted. And those kids went on to be so successful. And, and she is definitely a firecracker. And she appreciates the outdoors. She appreciates all those things. But most importantly, Julie brings something to the table. I mean, she's bringing something to the table. Mm-hmm. She's doing something. There are a lot of people who don't do anything. Not her. And it is those type of teachers in that type of educational process who are giving kids that didn't before have a chance to succeed, the chance to succeed.
That is awesome. And I of course have met your lovely wife and was actually wondering if that's where that came from.
Yeah, it's everybody teases me about it. Well, I don't care. I think she's a great teacher. I'm proud of her, and I'm proud of what she's accomplished. You don't want to hear something? So one of her students, no one in her family has ever graduated high school. She raised her mother, who was a drug addict. This child,
mm-hmm.
care of her mother and her brother, who were drug addicts, when she was 10, 12 years old. She had no prospects. She felt she had no prospects in life. But she not only graduated high school, she graduated college, and she just got her master's degree in archaeology. And that is a great story.
That is a good story, yes.
It is just about Victoria and teachers like her explaining to kids and letting them know that success is based more on the individual than on opportunity. You make your own opportunities. So there you go.
Awesome. I love it. Wow. Um, all right. So what can you tell your fans to expect next? So is there going to be a book 4 in the John Cabrelli series? Have you got thoughts? Where are we going from here?
Yeah, I have so much work to do out here on this place that I haven't started, but I've got book 4 pretty well written in my mind.
Awesome.
And that has been the case with the other books. And I just know the story and I just write it down. And so I think that and book 4, and actually book 4, it's kind of got a great, well, I'm not going to tell you what it is, but book 4 it really starts, it's cool. And it's, again, the basis for this is a true story. The main character in, one of the main characters in this book would, so I'm looking forward to writing it.
Well, that's the thing about being a writer is you got to write. It's in your head and you have to get it out. So
yeah, I don't even really think of myself as a writer. So, but I know that you have to write. And I talked to a group of high school kids yesterday, and they were talking about writing and whether they could write. And I said, well, what you got to do is write. Sit down and write something. It doesn't even matter if you show it to anyone else.
just try.
You got to like what you wrote so that you can be happy about it. And you got to do it. One word right after the other.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of the way I do it.
Well, they turn out great, and absolutely. I finished Bough Cutter this weekend as a preview copy, and absolutely fantastic. And I think
You like Bough Cutter?
Mm-hmm.
You
Yeah.
did?
Yeah,
Well,
absolutely. Yeah.
I'm glad you like Bough Cutter. I hope people like it. You know, the biggest thing about writing books is that I like it that people like the books. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's got a great flow. It's got some beautiful imagery, and the town. I feel like I could walk into that town and know how to get around and know who to talk to. So you really do just kind of bring it alive, and it sounds cold. Because again, I'm in the Southwest, so Wisconsin, northern Wisconsin is especially cold.
Yeah, and it is. They've had 5 different days where the temperature has gotten to 50 below zero, standing temperature. That's not with wind chill, and they average about 100 inches of snow a year, and people love it. I don't mind the winter at all. And
I gotta say, I think I've been in the Southwest long enough and have had enough days over 115 that I'm ready for some snow, quite frankly. So it's one of the reasons why I enjoy reading these books that just immerse you in that North Country.
Well, we don't freeze to death here. So what we do is go outside, and then we come in, and we have a wood stove on the porch with a little glass door in it, and we throw wood in there and get the fire going. And then we have a temperature differential. We have an outdoor thermometer, and we talk about the difference between outdoors and indoors. And that's very comfortable. That's probably where I do the best writing.
Oh, that's nice. Yeah, that sounds great. I'd love to have a fire. It's 105 right now where I am. All right. So thank you so much for stopping by. And
thank you for talking to me.
Oh, this was fun. It was a good conversation, and as I said, I'm really enjoying these books, and I know that lots of other people will as well. So if your fans have already read Figure 8 and Spider Lake, then they should definitely be ordering Bough Cutter, because it moves along beautifully. All right, so thank you again, and thank you all for being here for Blackbird Writers presents author interviews.
We'll be muskie fishing tomorrow.
All
See you later. Thanks very much.
right. Bye-bye.